In 2009, Eminem released the album the whole world had been waiting for, as it had been 5 years since Encore's release at the time. But when Relapse dropped, something unexpected happened. Fans hated it, critics mocked it, even Eminem disowned it. It might seem that the album turned out to be just bad. However, here is a twist that is hard to explain rationally. Because today, more than 16 years after Relapse's release, the album's haters seem to have suddenly disappeared. Suddenly it appears that more and more people love this album, and it is this album that fans can't stop talking about. So, what changed? The music or us? This is the story of how an album that was to become the worst in Eminem's discography became the most timeless and polarizing of his entire career. When Relapse dropped in 2009, it was supposed to be Eminem's big comeback. After overdosing, going to rehab, and nearly dying, fans expected something raw, real, maybe even redemptive. But what they got was something else entirely. Horrorcore rhymes, cartoon accents, murder fantasies, and a version of Eminem that felt completely unrecognizable to some fans.
I was born with a tick in my brain, yeah, fucked in the head. My stepfather said that I sucked in the bed.
Critics didn't hold back. The Times called Relapse an album that sits square between what Eminem is theoretically still capable of and what we feared he has become. The Independent gave it 2 stars, and MSN Music's Robert Christgau called it a dud and accused Eminem of sensationalism. Even longtime fans were confused. The album was dark, weird, over the top, and for many, it felt like Eminem was lost in the character of Slim Shady again, when the world wanted Marshall Mathers back. Anyway, one has to admit that the horrorcore vibe that prevailed on Relapse was probably not conducive to winning over the average listener.
You're walking down a horror corridor, it's almost 4 in the morning and you're in a nightmare, it's horrible.
Even Eminem himself turned on the album. In interviews, he called the accents sloppy, said the concept went too far, and that's why he decided to abandon the concept, even though he had already announced the release of Relapse 2.
There's no Relapse 2.
All right, there it is.
So that was it. Just 1 year later, he abandoned the Relapse era entirely. No Relapse 2, no continuation. Instead, he pivoted hard. Recovery dropped. A completely different sound, different tone, different man. Relapse became the black sheep of his discography, the album nobody talked about, at least, not for a while.
Oh no, what's happening to my brain? I can't believe this is happening.
But let's go back to 2009 for a moment more. In interviews from that time, Eminem mentioned that he had recorded enough material to probably even release Relapse 2 and Relapse 3. It was also probably for this reason that a lot of unreleased recordings leaked onto the internet at the time, such as Oh No and Things Get Worse, to name a few.
There are a lot of songs still that did not leak out.
From Relapse.
From Relapse.
Yep. However, something changed later, something that led Marshall to make a decision that is today perhaps the most regretted decision by his fans.
I remember listening to some of my older shit and going, why don't my shit, it don't feel like anything right now.
Marshall took the criticism seriously and began to analyze what went wrong himself. The main problem in his eyes turned out to be the infamous accents. However, for some reason, he decided not only to change his flow, but also his entire sound, thus moving away from perhaps the most unique production style of his entire career.
It was literally like a fucking awakening, and it happened in like fucking 10 minutes, listening to some of my older shit and going, I needed to feel like this again.
Admittedly, on December 21st, 2009, we still got Relapse, Refill, which was supposed to be a foretaste of what awaits us on Relapse 2. However, on April 13th, 2010, Eminem tweeted, "There is no Relapse 2," in the process announcing a new project titled Recovery.
The original title for this album was going to be Relapse 2, and I pretty much started from scratch. I kind of scrapped that whole idea or whatever as I started.
Just like that, an entire album erased. It seemed as if M simply wanted to forget about this album as soon as possible, and he probably didn't expect that many years later, thanks to fans, the subject of this album would come back to him more often than with any other project from his discography. For years, Relapse sat in the shadows. Considered Eminem's worst album, even the rapper himself said in Talking to Myself from the Recovery album that Encore and Relapse didn't count. That project was treated like the weird experiment that Eminem himself tried to erase.
Relapse is something that I looked at in a couple of years, went back to and cringed at.
But then something happened that probably no one expected. It's not even clear at what point fans' view of Relapse began to change. At first, it was subtle. Reddit threads resurfacing deep cuts, YouTube uploads of leaked Relapse 2 tracks getting millions of views, tweets calling it underrated, old forums bringing back the accent debate, and suddenly it went from being the most hated album to a classic, an underrated masterpiece. People weren't just defending Relapse, they were glorifying it. They started calling it Eminem's most cinematic album, his best production, hands down, his last truly shady album, a misunderstood masterpiece. And even the things that were hated, the accents, the horrorcore, the violent fantasy lyrics, started to be embraced, not as mistakes, but as art. And despite all his dislike for the project, Eminem simply couldn't overlook it.
F***ing great, man!
I was in recovery, okay? I had to relearn how to rap. And for f***ing what it's worth, there's an entire generation of people who think that's a f***ing classic.
The desire to hear more songs from that period has almost turned into a movement. Fans are clamoring for the release of Relapse 2, and their appetites have certainly been further aroused by the songs that leaked with Straight From The Lab 3, such as Sociopath, Key to My Room, and Love Drunk.
Here we go, let's go with the sociopath with the hokey flow.
Interestingly, despite his negative attitude toward Relapse, M noticed the trend and in a sense decided to give the fans what they wanted. This is evidenced by songs such as Discombobulated and Is This Love, which, as it turned out through later leaks, were originally intended for Relapse and published in a revamped form many years later.
S-L-I-M-S-H-A-D-Y, I'm H-I-G-H, yeah baby hi.
And that's the real twist. It's not just that fans changed their minds, it's that the more Eminem tried to leave it behind, the louder the fans brought it back. And now, years later, it's no longer just an album, it's a phenomenon, a cult classic. So how did something so hated become the one thing no one can stop talking about? Relapse has become a cultural phenomenon. It's hard to point to another such album on which one's opinion has changed so dramatically over the years. At first hated, years later adored. Today it is the most discussed project in Eminem's career. Anyway, this is what inspired the creation of this video in the first place. After I published a documentary on recovery on this channel, and yet most of the comments under that video were about Relapse. It's safe to say that this project is like a good wine that gets even better with the passage of time. The songs from that period had a unique atmosphere about them. Although they were sometimes disturbing, they drew you into their world like no other project, and perhaps this is what made fans appreciate Relapse years later. However, it is rather vain to expect that we will ever hear Relapse 2. In fact, M himself admitted in an interview with Paul that such a project does not exist, although there are many unreleased tracks from that period. Perhaps we will hear some of them on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of Relapse's release, which falls in 2029. Let's keep our fingers crossed that this will be the case. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think of the Relapse phenomenon? Do you also love this album? If so, was it like this from the very day of its release? Or has your opinion changed over the years? Be sure to let us know in the comments, and let's keep the conversation going. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to show some love by leaving a like and sharing it with another stan. Also, don't forget to check out the documentary on Relapse available on this channel for more behind the scenes stories from the making of this project. And for more content from the world of Slim Shady, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to always stay up to date. Until next time, stans, peace.